Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Close Call Show. Hello, Elena. And I'm super happy to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Good, good. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm super excited to have you on the show. I know we've been wanting to do this for a long time, and finally, the time is right. I'd love to kick this off. Let's sort of talk about and start with your journey. How did Cino come about or Chino come about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a funny story because back then I used to work at Bumble. I was leading product from the time when you swipe right on a person to when you go on a date. And there was two things that happened that led me to Chino. One was I swiped right on my current partner, and we started, going out and sharing a lot of, money expenses together. And being a product person, I got really, really frustrated with the current experiences. I tested all kinds of products that were available back then. And I was shocked that this was like the state of, of money management back in the day. And the second thing that happened at that time is I was really studying Gen Z. I was trying to understand how do we as a dating app
Mm,
become, relevant to the young generation? How do they make friends? How do they keep the relationships? How are they dating? And every single time I would be at a user interview or look at some kind of insights, money came up always constantly as like, oh, because someone was owing me 50 pounds, I broke this relationship, or because we never discussed finances, I felt there was this huge elephant in the room and I couldn't become more connected to my partner. And so we decided to break up, sorry. And I felt like that was such an interesting insight. I was like, why all of a
yeah.
sudden money plays such a huge role for this generation? And then when I started dating myself, I realized, yeah, it is exceptionally painful right now to manage this. So that's kind of like how it led me to think of how would I solve this problem for Gen Z, but also for myself, right, as a millennial. And I had this little idea. I was like, you know what? The problem really stems at the moment of payment. Like, oh, sorry, the recap. The problem really stems after the fact, after you pay. Like, you don't want
Mm,
to do all the accounting job of trying to figure out who owes you how much. Did you ask them back? Did you forget to ask them back? Did they actually send it to you? Or do you have to
yeah.
ask again? So I thought, what if there's a way to solve it at the moment of payment so you can kill everything that happens after you pay for an experience? And that idea kind of created Chino and led to where we are today.
This is fantastic, fantastic, because this pain point is so real and it's awkward. It's embarrassing to ask for money. You're the best of the friends. You've shared different things, but then when it comes to, hey, you know what? We shared a drink that day, and it cost me 20 pounds for that drink, and you owe me that. It just feels cheap and small. I absolutely, absolutely get it, and I think you sort of hit the bullseye, because the problem is after the fact you pay. How do you ask for it? How do you split it?
Yeah.
How do you sort it? Super interesting. So
And
while you
maybe
were at Bumble, mhm.
Yeah, maybe just an anecdote about like how it really boiled into my relationship is like I wanted to have a conversation one day with my partner and I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm being a sugar mama and I'm constantly paying and then he forgets to pay me back. So I was like,
Mm,
I need to discuss this with him. So I sat him down and I said, I think you owe me close to like 300 pounds. At this
ooh,
point, like, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I think we need to have a better system to manage. And then he came to me and he said, actually, you owe me around like, I forgot what it was, like 600 pounds or something. I'm like, from when? From where? And then he's like, well, actually, I was like tracking out the notes because I thought maybe at a certain point I should mention it to you. But since you're bringing it up, then if I owe you 300 and you owe me 600, then you owe me whatever 300, right? And I was like,
yeah,
what? And for me, that was so
shocked.
fascinating. Yeah, I was like, I was mad at him for months. He was uncomfortable, and we just were so awkward. We like did not want to talk about money.
Mm,
Like money is such an awkward thing in relationship. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with this. What's interesting to me is I'm sure when you were doing this research, you must have come across other apps. And one of the most popular ones, especially when I was in a shared household, was Splitwise, right? I mean, anybody can add their budgets there, spending there, but you have to keep reminding your friend, hey, you owe me this much. And it's always sometimes by the end of the month, we don't even see each other in the flat because they're like, money is much. So I'm sure you did that research. I want to understand what about this and what about the lack of, better tools? What was that insight that you had when you did this research about the Gen Z people and the existing app?
Yeah. I know Splitwise really well because when I started working at Booking.com, as part of my job, I had to travel a lot, right, with my colleagues, and we would download it and we constantly would track. And I started Chino was because I also started realizing that I had several of these groups where I was owed like from 300 to 700
Mm-hmm.
pounds. I had like thousands of unsettled
Oh.
groups, but we just couldn't get to it because there would be always that one person who would be like, oh yeah, I didn't put my list of expenses yet. Wait, we can't
Mm-hmm.
settle yet, we can't settle yet. But back in the day, I actually brought my partner onto Splitwise, so I said let's track it there because it should be easy. But it was the most unromantic thing ever. Imagine, we tried two systems. We tried, okay, let's do every weekend, we're going to sit down,
Mm-hmm.
spend an hour, just go through our bank accounts and see who paid for what and just put them there to have like full transparency. It was dreadful. Every weekend when you're
Oh
trying to
yeah.
relax from work and you have to do, relationship accounting, it was horrible. So then we said, okay, let's just do it at the moment so that we just don't forget and we don't have to have our weekend spent doing this. And it was the most unromantic thing. It's like, oh, I'm buying
Mm.
coffee. Wait, I need to pull out my phone. I need to open the app. I need to track
Yeah.
it, say that you owe me whatever the £3. And it's like, are we really that cheap that we want to track every £3? But then it does
Mm-hmm.
accumulate.
Yeah.
So it just didn't work. So then we said, okay, screw Splitwise. Sorry, apologize. Forget Splitwise. We are gonna go and try to create a joint bank account. Let's like we were like 2 or 3 months in a relationship. We were kind of like did not know where this was gonna head, but we were like, it's fine. Let's just open a joint bank account. And then his bank didn't offer it. My bank did offer it, but it would require me to come physically into the branch and sign a paper and
Mm-hmm.
make it all official. I was like, this is too ridiculous. So then we tried one of the neobanks. And because it's none of our, primary banks, the problem was that we had to remember to put money on top of it every
Mm-hmm.
single time we needed to pay. And sometimes you put too much and then you need a bit, take away because, you have other
Yeah.
things you need to pay in life. And sometimes you would forget to do enough, so then the payment failed. So you're like, okay, fine,
Mm.
I'll pay for it, and we'll put it on Splitwise. And then you're in between the two systems, and none of them.
Oh.
So this is
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, to such a degree of like, this is insane. Like, it cannot be this difficult. Like, someone has to think about it differently. And this is when it hit me that no one has thought about payments in a social aspect. It's all very one dimensional. That's why Splitwise, it's like you input your payment, your share, and
Mm.
banks are all about your salary, your money, you have to front, and then we'll help you get the money back. For me, that's such a funny concept that you have to put money in first to then try to get it back.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
has thought about a way to create for people to pay together in the digital world.
Super interesting. I think maybe now is the right time to talk about your product. Oh, where are you at the moment? I know you recently raised a big round. Tell us a bit about the journey. Tell us a bit about the product. And are you open in all countries? Which geographies? Is it open currently?
Yes. So the idea was very simple. It's how do we make people pay together without having yet another wallet that you have to pre-fill, and by killing everything you have to do after you pay for something, right? All of the payment requests, all of the messages and everything like that. So we said the easiest and the first product that we can build is to figure out a way that when you tap a card, it takes my share directly from my bank account, whatever the bank account is, and your share directly from your bank account. But then in that split second that the payment has to go through, it will put it as one payment to the restaurant. So the restaurant receives £100, doesn't even know that the bill has been split. But when we tap the Chino card, it will take only our share instantly directly from our bank accounts in that split second and moment. And that's exactly what Chino does and what Chino is. And the exciting thing, I think, that shocked a lot of investors in this round were, I think, two things. One is the scope of the problem. Everyone split payments, whether it's with a colleague, a roommate, a friend, going on a trip, dating, you name it. And when you look at statistics and data about Gen Z and where the economy is, I feel like a lot of people right now cannot afford to live by
Mm.
themselves. So
Yeah.
everything they do, whether going out for a meal or living condition, is split with someone else, right? Or subscriptions, you name it. And the second thing that's interesting is I think a lot of people had the misconception of how often people pay together.
Mm.
So a
Mm.
lot of investors were like, okay, how much is it, like £50 per month? Or do they split, I don't know, 2 or 3 times per month when they go out on Friday night? And I said, no, no, no. On average, a user with us pays every other day. So an average, not our top
Mm-hmm.
users, an average user
Mm-hmm.
does 15 payments per month with us.
Mm.
And a lot of users are reaching the £3,000 per month
Wow.
threshold. So we're not talking about £50, or we're not talking about 2 or 3 payments. So those were the two things that made this round so exciting.
Of course, I mean, when you said the receiver doesn't know, the restaurant doesn't know that it's being split, I'm just thinking about the technology and the tech stack that you've built behind this, and then the banking systems, the banking rails. All of this needs to work within seconds without it having failing, and then there'll be two banks, two issuers, two acquirers, all of that coming together. Oh my God, this is a technological marvel. And of course, so I'm when you said this, I'm just thinking about how many walks do I go in a week? And it's not just with one person, right? It's not just with flatmate. Let's say I'm going out with a colleague and we're having lunch together, or I'm having drinks with someone else, or I'm going on a date night, or I'm living with my flatmates, uh, or whatever it is. So it's not just one person that you're splitting with. It's different people based on the different context and the time of the day that you're living in. So absolutely. Um, I think this is going to become the go-to. So it's going to be like let's Chino it. Uh, and some I'm hoping that this happens. You know, when university students vote together and like, oh, if you're not on Chino, you're not going to be my flatmate. Bye
Yeah.
bye. Uh,
Yeah, no,
uh,
definitely. I think it's like, Klarna was the biggest, I guess, fintech innovation
mhm.
since maybe, I don't know, Visa and MasterCard. Then there was open banking, and I think now it's shared payments.
Yep. Now tell me, during this journey, have you ever had a core belief about your customer group that was wrong and you had to change it and learn it from feedback? Is there anything like that?
I think many, I think uh, I'll just start maybe with the early assumptions, but I can also try to think of latest ones. But I think at the beginning, my and my co-founder's biggest assumption was that it's the inefficiency that is the most painful, right? Like if you have 30 expenses you do in a month across, I don't know, roommates and friends, the putting it into splitwise, the sending the payment request, the messaging is the biggest hurdle. So we thought we were just making a very simple convenience, a very
Mm-hmm.
purely utility convenience type of product. But then as we started getting, feedback from our first customers, and even till this day, the first and the most thing that they are grateful for is that we removed the awkwardness about money and relationships. And they said, we're basically saving their relationships. And I was
Mm-hmm.
so shocked. I'm like, I mean, I'm grateful. Thank you so much for this feedback. But I'm like, aren't you excited about the fact that this can do this and this can do that? And
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, no, 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 that's really, really great. But like, it's more about the fact that like I feel less lonely now because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
scared that money will, break my report. And that made me realize how I think I underestimated the power of awkwardness, right? And how lonely people are, especially the younger generation. So
Yeah.
maintaining even one extra friend is really, really important. And that was one of the interesting insights. Um, I think the other assumption that we had was that we thought that friends would be our biggest like early adopter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But actually, couples way outperformed friends. Like we
Mm-hmm.
went massively viral in Finland with couples, like 8 million views. Like my co-founder laughs that the whole of Finland saw our video. Um, and then we just decided to replicate a similar video in Italy, but with a different messaging. And then it was also like, I think it went even more viral than Finland. And it was all about relationship and
Wow.
money. And like the couples were just like in love with this. They're like, I don't want to do a joint bank account and there's nothing available there. So yeah, that was a second learning for us about like how we thought the segmentation would work differently. And I guess the third one was we assumed the northern part when we went to like think about our go to market strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We chose the northern part of Europe because our app is in English. So we're
Mm-hmm.
like, we need to go to countries where they speak English. We need to go to countries where the salary is higher because, we of course want to
Yeah.
demonstrate the potential of this product in the early days and show the amount of volume we can capture. So the more salary, the more economical power they
Mm-hmm.
have to spend. Um, and yeah, and they were awkward about money. And we thought we should not go to the south of Europe because salaries are low, less people speak English, all the opposite. But Italy has become the quickest kind of like market back in the day, and it really, really
Wow.
skyrocketed for us. And
Hmm.
on average, Italians spend more than Finnish. And it made
Ooh.
me realize it's because Italians are much more social than Finnish, right? Like Italians.
Exactly. The cultural aspect of it. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly, exactly. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. And like a lot, I was raised in Italy, so I know that the culture is like, oh, it's fine, I'll take this round, you'll give me the next round. But it seems like the times and the economy has changed where people
Changed.
really want to make sure they're not like, losing money on things that they shouldn't.
Wow. Super interesting. I also want to touch on the Germany story because you recently posted about this on LinkedIn as well. And when I read it, I was like, wow, this is what is this? Is this virality? Is this product market fit at the top
Yeah.
rank? Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, that was so funny because we were like, thinking about UK and how do we launch it correctly because we got such a big wait list there and we really
Yeah.
wanted to do it well. And we were preparing and doing all of these, different experiments and things. And then all of a sudden we see like like we have like alerts, right, of our
Mm,
systems. And I'm like, what's happening? And I'm like, no, this is a good alert. And I'm like starting to check and we're like, oh, we have thousands of signups from Germany. I'm like, what? And I'm like messaging my marketing team. I'm like, did you do anything? What's going on? And they're like, well, yeah, we did like one video. We spent like 112 euros paying this one influencer in Germany just to like test the waters. And then it skyrocketed. And I'm
ooh.
like, okay. And I was like, okay, how much did you like spend in total? And they're like, just 1,500. We just did like a few videos here and there,
Hmm.
but they're all growing really, really well. I'm like, okay. And then I started like looking into
The data.
yeah, the data, because I was like, okay, are they just like signing up and dropping off? And like, no, they're becoming like normal users, and then they're inviting 3 to 4 other people. And I'm like, okay, this is great, right? And I was like, what are we doing? Maybe we should not look at UK. Maybe we should just like go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it because to answer your question of where Chino is live, I think I forgot to answer at the beginning. We're live all across Europe. So if you
Hmm.
have a friend in Italy or Germany, you can pay together. And we are now live in the UK as well. And it works with any bank.
Lovely.
So it doesn't matter which bank you have, Chino will
Hmm.
work with it. So we do have a little
Amazing.
sometimes hot pockets here and there that just like self-activate.
This is a great segue into some questions that I want to ask around go-to-market and activation. And what is this even called? This referral, word of mouth, virality factor that's sort of inbuilt into the product. The first question that I have for you is, how did you get your first customers? Is it because right now Instagram is all the name and fame, but then let's say 2, 3 years back, especially during COVID, I don't know whether you guys were active during COVID. How did the first 10 or 100 customers happen? How did
Yeah.
you do that?
So I went to Web Summit. This was
Hmm.
I didn't quit Bumble yet. I was still trying to
Hmm.
investigate. It was funny because back then my co-founder had her own profitable startup. I was at
Nice.
Bumble. We met. I said about this idea that I had. So we started spending time figuring out the payment flows. And while we were trying to figure out how to build the payment flows, I said, let me fly to Web Summit because I had the Women in Tech ticket. And I'm like, let me just go like interview people. It's going to be the easiest thing to just grab here
Hmm.
and there.
Hmm.
And so I
Hmm.
did that. And I think it was like, I think like within the first like half a day, I got like 200 people signing up. So I was just going around being like, hey, I have this idea. Like, what do you think? Genuinely, would you download it? And they're like, yes, here's my email. Email me the second it's live. I'm like, it's not live yet. I need to build it. And like, oh, no, if you build it, this is going to be great. And so I
Wow.
like went back and I was like, told Lena, I'm like, look at this. Like, look, at just half a day, we have 200. And then she's like, okay, wait, that's great. But these are like, tech savvy people who go to tech conferences. Let's go to the average, Gen Z. Let's go
Mm,
to these. And she looks really young, although she's extremely young. So she infiltrated into the universities, and then she brought me along. And then we sat down there and we just like, when people were eating and having lunch, we'd be like, hey, do you mind if I sit with you and be like, hey, I'm a student, I have this idea, like, what do you think about it?
hmm.
And we got such great intel of like
Wow.
for example, that Gen Z are on the traditional bank accounts. They're not on any of the neobanks. The fact
Mm.
that they don't even know Splitwise because it's a millennial
Ooh,
app, millennial generation. So they use Excel sheets. They
interesting.
didn't even know what Splitwise was.
Excel?
Yeah,
Wow.
they could tell, and they would show me how, like how they like color coded it and whatever, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. And then we got another like 2,000 signups by just going like, I don't know, every week for a couple of months, talking to, we were testing the different like afterwards like designs and stuff, but every time we would talk to someone, they would be like, put my roommate, put my girlfriend. So every time we talked to one person, they would give us several emails. So it was
Hmm.
really, really good for acquisition at the beginning. Yeah.
This is such a sexy story. This is as good as how Tinder went to all the colleges and then got all their users on. This is so cool. And Elena, to be honest, I'm getting goosebumps because this is such a painkiller. I don't know how they call it. It's people needed it 5 years ago, and it's here now. So people want it. They're grabbing it. It's so cool. Uh, wow. Okay. So that's how you got your first users, and then you finally launched the product, and then it's now we can see it. It's word of mouth, viral. Um, have you ever felt, I mean, so what was interesting when you spoke about the Gen Z behavior is that they're not even on the neobanks. They're all on the traditional banks. This is so counterintuitive, right? Because you think, oh, everyone likes colorful, the Monzos and things like that, but interesting. Um, so just like this, has there ever been, sometimes the data is showing something and your gut is showing something, then and then your instincts win. So have you ever had a moment that, "Hey, yes, the data is showing that, but I'm gonna do this"? Have you done experiments like that?
I think as a founder, especially at the beginning, you don't have any data of anything, right? So you have to really, really rely on your gut. I think it's similar to the frequency one, but basically, when we did the university interviews, right? And we went and said, okay, like, give us an estimate of how often or how frequent this happens. A lot of people were saying, I think it's like happens maybe 4 or 5 times a month that I have to send a
Mm-hmm.
payment request to someone. So it's not that frequent, it's not that often. And my gut feeling was like, this cannot be 4 to 5 times because like I in my relationship do it like 30 times, right? And then they're like, yeah, but like I'm single, but I do have friends. And I'm like, okay, but tell me, for example, how often you go, like if I basically stopped there, I would be like, okay, that's it, that's the answer, right? Because they just say
Mm-hmm.
5, that's too low of a frequency. Even if we have a successful product, that's just not
It's
gonna
not
have,
worth it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not worth it. And then that's where like I think my co-founder and I had this sort of gut feeling. I was like, we cannot trust the answers of these questions. We need to start asking other questions to confirm whether
Exactly.
that
Mm-hmm.
understanding is correct of theirs. And so we started asking things like, have you, like, how often do you go on vacation per year? And we were shocked. They're like 6 to 8 times. I'm like, what? You're
Ooh.
students. Where? How do you?
Yeah.
Like, oh well, like my parents give me the money,
Mm-hmm.
or I get like some countries here in Europe, they give you like little like stipend or pension as a student, and they're like, oh, I just spend it on trips and everything like that. I'm like, okay, so if you go 6 to 8 times, right, like how often do you have to get your money back? And they're like, oh, it takes months to settle, and my God, like I have like, I don't know, 500 euros from the last trip that no one paid me back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I still have to get back that. I'm like, okay, then what's your living situation? Do you live with someone? Are you like spending on groceries? Are you sharing a Netflix subscription, Spotify? Oh yeah, good point. Actually, yeah, I've been paying for Netflix for the past 5 months and never asked for my money. And like they start piling up,
Yeah.
creating like an Excel sheet of like use cases, and then we calculate
Mm-hmm.
our own frequency to like confirm what it
Wow.
is, right? Um, and I think the other thing that data versus gut, like I think we thought that the spread of usage of like
Mm-hmm.
when you put together is pretty evenly throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
But then, for example, our data showed that there's a huge spike from like Wednesday to Monday morning. This is when people are
Oh.
likely to spend together. Like we still have a lot of great usage on Monday, Tuesday, but it just like goes like completely
Mm-hmm.
overboard. And that kind of, I think, demonstrates the human behavior of like the closer you are to the weekend, the more you're like, let's
Weekend.
a coffee on Wednesday. Let's chit chat, let's plan the things
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. And on Sunday,
Lovely.
a massive day because a lot of people, I don't know, go grocery shopping or like furniture
Yes.
buying to decorate things
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot.
Super, super interesting and insightful. And this is so important, right? Asking the right questions because based on what you're asking, where you're looking, you get very different perspective and answer. I think this is very interesting and important for most founders that are starting out, anyone that's testing out their product, anyone that's testing out an idea. Very, very cool. I want to shift gears and ask you a bit about one of the most important questions of the podcast, which is the challenge. Um, what's been the most pivotal challenge or decision that you faced or you've sort of undergone while building Chino? Tell us about the first thing is the challenge, and tell us about why that challenge is important that you want to share that with the audience. Yeah.
Mm. I think the biggest challenge that any startup and any startup founder in any situation is to really learn how to tell the narrative of why and what they're building. And I think it's still I'm still figuring that out. Like you're always
Mm-hmm.
like the amount of pitch decks I've done, like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even kidding when it's like several thousands of pitch decks
Yeah.
every day on the same thing. The biggest challenge is you've created a product, you deeply understand it, you're passionate about it, and you need to suppress your passion and you need to
Mm-hmm.
remember the main point that you built it for, right? And then try to create a narrative about like, hey, do you know when you do this and this is painful? Hey, there's a solution for this, right? So it's like a sales pitch. But a lot
Mm.
of founders get it wrong because either they're too product focused or they're
Yeah.
too vague where you're like, I don't know what you're telling me. And
Mm.
the biggest challenge we had at the beginning was, oh, you're another Splitwise. Oh yeah, I know Splitwise. Yeah, I know apps like you. Okay, done. End of conversation. We're like, no, we're not Splitwise. Like, oh,
Mm.
you're like, the joint bank account. Oh, I know what that is. And like, okay, no, we're not joint bank account. So like, it was really hard for us because we couldn't say we're the Uber for X.
Mm-hmm.
We were in
Mm-hmm.
several territories, and there was no one, and still to today, there's no one who's building what we're building. So we still cannot say, hey, we're the Klarna for whatever it is.
Yeah.
And even if you do have the Uber for X, like you really need to simplify your message and really test it out to make sure you're like, are you getting what I'm actually building or what I'm all about? Because people have the
Mm-hmm.
attention span of 1 second, and if you're losing
Yeah.
that, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's not, yeah, you lost them unfortunately. I think the second challenge as a startup founder, it's just building the right team. Uh, I think there's nothing new. Probably other people on your podcast has shared about this, but like mishiring is so costly. And I have hired for many years at product companies, right, before. And so I kind of said, you know what, we can't afford to have these like intensive long, hiring cycles because we're a startup. So let's just try to, very, very quickly make a decision. And God, that was costly. It was costly
Mm.
because we made two mistakes. Not only our interview process, we did not know what we were looking for yet. So of course it's natural. Every company is different. And so you're still building your
Yeah.
culture, your understanding of how to vet the right person. But then the other thing is like once you have the gut feeling and you realize that they're not the right person, I myself, as well as other founders that I've met, take so long to make the decision
Mm.
of firing or,
Letting go.
letting go. I think one of my life mentors that I once spoke to him about it, and he's like, Elena, you should know within the first week and a half. Like, there's nothing that happens after the first 2 weeks
Wow.
that will
Mm.
tell you otherwise. So you have to decide, and you have to tell all of them in the team that they should know within the first 2 weeks if we're gonna go forward with this person or not. It should be that
Mm-hmm.
quick.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where your gut feeling will come in because you will know, and
Mm.
you should never fear letting go, because I think keeping the wrong person will have so much damage and impact into the
Mm.
company that repairing that will
Mm.
take like months
Mm.
afterwards. So it's better to act quick, and that's a lesson that I'm still learning and trying to remember every time we're hiring new people.
I wanna double click on this bit, the people bit, Elena, is because it is one of the biggest challenges from finding the right co-founding team, finding the right people to start with, them, then grow and scale your business. So the question that I have is, let's say you know in your gut that this person is not right for the business. Is it because they're not performing well? Is it their attitude? Is it their skill level? So what about it makes you think that this person is not the right fit?
So I think maybe contextually taking a step back, like what I've heard other founders when we were discussing these topics, they always
Mm-hmm.
say, like they always think the reason why someone is not performing well or not doing well culturally is because you as a founder failed to set the expectations right or manage
Mm-hmm.
correctly,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you were not clear about the values. Maybe I repeated it 2 or 3 times, but I should have repeated it 20 times, because, different occasions
Mm-hmm.
you might, it sticks differently. But I think, so if you feel like, let's start with the fact that, like, if you feel like you did the basics right, this is our
Mm-hmm.
culture, this is a non-negotiable, and this is what I
Mm-hmm.
expect you to do, and please do it, and let's reconvene after whatever, a week or two, and see how you have progressed. Then you have enough information to see, okay, like, is this person
Mm-hmm.
up to the speed that we need to execute? Is this
Mm-hmm.
person up to the quality that we're executing? Is this person having the right mentality and mindset? There's a lot of times where a lot of founders get burned when they're hiring the I don't know, Google, X, Meta. The kind of employee that succeeds at big organizations are not the type of people that will perhaps succeed in a small company, because big organizations are organized. If you don't do something by this amount of time, it's not going to collapse or die, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course, you can always be fired by a big organization, but in a startup, it's sort of like you might die if you don't do something, right? So it's a very, very different mentality, a lot of chaos, a lot of things that change. And a lot of people don't perform well under pressure. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
during the interview say, no, 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 I had a bit of experience of a startup in university, and then I went into big tech companies, and now I want to go back into the startup world, or I've never done it, but I'm super, super flexible and I can get to do that. The proof is in the pudding. Like, the first 2 weeks, you will see
Yeah.
if they really
Yeah.
thrive chaos. Do they find that exciting and they don't get bothered by it? Or you find some people really start tanking because they're like, oh, what is my priority? I don't know what I need to do today. And that's a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
In a startup, no one can stop everything to tell you what exactly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? I hope I answered your question. But I think
Yeah.
you know as a founder what you need, and if you're not getting
Mm-hmm.
it, then you have to think why.
Mm-hmm. So it's so it, I think the bottom line is, does the person, the one that you hired, do they really fit the hustle? Hustle not in a bad way, as in the startup and a Google, these are completely different animals, if we can sort of call them that, and they behave differently. Their appetite to grow, their appetite to do things and be curious is very, very different. So it's a little bit, it's a lot more attitude. I also ask this question because I've seen in my journey of working with different organizations. Yes, there's this attitude that matters, asking the right questions, being eager, being proactive, especially in the first few months. But I've also seen myself, the first 3 months is a lot more about, yes, asking the right questions, but also watching and learning how different people react. Am I pushing enough weight, but also really learning the language, really learning the terms, the people, how they work? And then I've seen myself from the fourth, fifth month, my productivity has just really skyrocketed, that I've surprised myself. Oh my God, I know how this thing works. So now I can go and really play and really do defense instead of um so that's why I asked this question about, there could be some time for that candidate to really learn, because every team and every culture, every organization is
Yeah.
different. Um,
But
yeah.
that's a good point, because I didn't mean outcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely understandable that you need
Okay.
at least
Mm-hmm.
1 month to fully even
Mm-hmm.
understand how the product
Yeah.
works.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's what you said correctly. It's like the attitude. Like, are you curious enough to go deep and dig the right questions? Or are you coming to me being like, oh, in my past company, we did this, so therefore we're going to do this here? And I'm like, why? We're completely different. Just because we're FinTech or because we're this doesn't mean that it applies automatically. And this
Mm-hmm.
mentality makes you realize someone doesn't want to be curious and dig and really understand how your product is different and what you need to do in this company to be successful. It's not about the output. It's really about that hustler
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. I'll figure it out, and I can go by myself to figure out. Like, if I need to get on
Mm-hmm.
the phone call, and I'm an engineer, but if I need to get on a phone call and just call a customer and ask a couple questions, I'm comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with that. If I want to go dig into data and just manipulate and do my own dashboards to get my own understanding, I can do that. If I need an hour with a founder to sit down and be like, hey, I have these lists of questions, I don't know how to get to them, can you like quickly summarize? Fantastic. These are all great. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to, yeah, build a feature in the first 2 weeks.
Fantastic. The other part of the people problem that I want to ask you about is, let's say you've been holding on letting go of that person. Have you seen, can you give me like top three things on Jay? These are the areas where I see a lot of effects of what about it is super painful that, I know it's painful. It's sometimes the guilt, it's sometimes remorse that, oh my God, why I didn't do this, procrastination, but what is it? And if you were to do it again, what would you do differently?
The question is about why hesitation of letting go.
If you don't let go, what are the areas it shows up? Where do you see trouble coming up?
Yeah, I think in many cracks because unfortunately or fortunately, every decision you take or you don't take, the team makes sort of some kind of like an impression of what kind of founder you are, right? If people
Mm,
don't perform to their maximum capacity, but you're performing to the maximum capacity, and the founder is not saying anything to this person who's not performing to the maximum capacity, why is that? Are they too scared to give direct feedback? Are they don't care about motivation? Then maybe I should work at this capacity, right?
mm,
But I joined the ship because we were supposed to be fast and we were supposed to be all like, uniting together to build
yes.
something amazing and get the outcomes. But if the founder doesn't even care about it, then why should I care about it, right? Um, or like, do I really respect the founder now? Like, do I really trust that they're making the right decisions for the company? Or for example, it could also outweigh in being like, yeah, like breaking momentum. It's like, oh, we're having a dead weight over here, and it's
Mm,
not useful in any way. And then there's resentment and remorse. And like, if I, for example, for whatever reason, say to this high performer, like, hey, you made a mistake here. Why did you make a mistake here? Because maybe I'm more comfortable. And then he's like, but why did you not give a
yeah,
feedback?
yeah, 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 yeah.
They did this, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, the dynamics just become worse. It has so many repercussions, and also then you're like, if you're hiring more people, then like how are you going to have the conversation that we don't want to hire this type of person anymore, but we want someone like you?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then why are we keeping this person afloat? So
Oh, this is gold. This is gold, and it touches so many of my nerves and my past experiences. This is such an important point because because startups, it's such an high performance adrenaline sort of environment, and every single person that sort of signs up to work at a startup, they have that big vision. They're looking at that star, the unicorn, and really growing with the company. And when someone who doesn't really fit sort of comes along and then they're doing things differently, it really annoys not just the founder but then everyone else. And then I've done this. I've sort of looked at my founder and the CEO and thought, is it because I'm stupid or is he stupid?
yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah,
really happening? What's happening? So yeah, absolutely. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's super candid. Okay, now the last segment for this podcast, it's called the almost rapid fire. Um, so three questions. So the first thing is, what are some of your favorite consumer products?
Rapid fire. I think I usually look at the Chinese apps because they're way ahead of our time.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of interesting super apps, like even just simply Douyin, the Chinese TikTok or
Mm-hmm.
WeChat or any kind of like, I don't know, booking travel app. They
Mm-hmm.
can do 50,000 things, and the way that they engage their customer and the way they can make you buy something or upgrade to,
Mm-hmm.
it's just phenomenal. I think not only it's handy as a consumer, I wish we could have these products in the Western world, but I think it's just inspirational because you're like, I didn't even know a product like this could exist, or this is so smart of how they did this. So I really try to look at them for inspiration.
Cool. The second one is, what do you wish VCs did more of or less of?
I think it would be great if how VCs tell to founders like go talk to the customer. I wish a lot of VCs would follow the same advice and really be in the trenches to really understand what's happening. So a lot, just to give you an example, at the beginning when I first was fundraising, it was really hard to explain to people what Gen Z mentality is, or what do they care about, or why they care about
Mm-hmm.
this. And of course, not every VC can be in the trenches of everything. But if you're like a specialist in specific vertical, then go call that customer or go on a sales call and just like see what the problems are. Try to use the systems that people are using right now. Really understand, because I think that's kind of will give you the more insight of like the companies you should back in the future because you see
Mm,
where things are headed, right?
mm-hmm,
Versus if you're just listening to other VCs speak their opinions about what they think is
mm,
hot based on how good a pitch of a founder was,
mm-hmm.
you're really not getting an understanding of where the world is heading, right? But being there in the trenches, you will understand like, ah, this is a huge problem. It's
Yeah.
growing, and I need to find a
Wow.
startup fixing that problem.
Wow. Wow. Super insightful. The last one. What about the future excites you?
In general, or for China?
Chino?
Oh, we just started in shared payments. There's so much that needs to be built from how
Mm,
do you split your rent to if you're on booking.com and you're trying to check out with a friend an hotel room, how does Chino live on your checkout page instead of being just a card? So we
mm-hmm.
really want to create this new wave of new layer of payments. And we just started with our first consumer product, but there's just so much more to go.
Thank you so much, Elena, for a wonderful, candid, honest chat. I think I learned a lot of new things, and I wish you all the best for your journey ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. This was super fun. Thank you.